Let me take you back to opening weekend of 2021. The stands are full of fans for the first time since COVID. Everyone hates the new Bally scorebug, and Yermin Mercedes is the biggest story in the sports world. In his very first MLB start, he did something that Barry Bonds never could.
Mercedes has his first major league hit.
This is unfair. He's got 3 hits tonight. What's going on here?
It's a 4-hit night.
It's a 5-for-5.
Nobody had ever gone 5 for 5 in their first career start before, and once people read up on Yermin's story, the feat also became a feel-good tale. For nearly a decade, he toiled in the minors and even independent ball, finally working his way through the White Sox system and debuting in 2020. For just one single pinch hit at bat. He just barely cracked their opening day roster for 2021, with no guaranteed playing time. But manager Tony La Russa wasn't gonna bench Mercedes after a 5-hit game. Yermin knew that he needed to keep it up to keep playing, so he somehow raised his OPS during his second game.
Down the left field line. Did he? Yes, he did. Yermin Mercedes, bring him home.
Number 1, where's this guy been? And number 2, how in the world do you get him out?
The fun never stops with number 73. Send him to the All-Star game. In the air, center field. The streak will end here.
5 of those 8 hits across his first 2 games came with 2 strikes. He notably cut out his stride entirely in those situations, but still had enough power to clear the fence. And the hitting didn't stop there. Mercedes won the first AL Player of the Week award of the year, went 3 for 4 in his 4th game, homered again in his 6th game, and drew 3 walks in his first hitless game of the year. 3 hits and a homer on April 14th, 4 for 4 with 3 RBIs on April 23rd, and only 1 game without reaching base in the entire month of April. The Yerminator was named AL Rookie of the Month, and it was an obvious pick. He was probably the 26th man on the roster on opening day, but he was hitting 5th in the lineup every day by the end of his first week. His mix of raw power and play coverage, paired with his 2-strike approach and a badass nickname, made baseball fans of all ages fall in love with his game. But there was a catch. If you started watching baseball in June of that very same year, you'd probably have no idea that he ever existed. Yermin Mercedes epitomizes baseball's version of a Linsanity Run. For those who aren't familiar with the NBA, Jeremy Lin went from undrafted free agent and bench warmer to the most famous athlete on the planet, thanks to a dominant and unexpected months-long run. He led the floundering Knicks to a 7-game win streak, hit game-winning shots, and put up unreal stats. Besides that 1 month, he was nothing more than your run-of-the-mill role player for the rest of his career. This is where the term Linsanity comes from. Linsanity, when a seemingly average, unspectacular person suddenly erupts with success and develops a ridiculous cult-like following. This definition was posted to Urban Dictionary on February 19th, 2012, and I think it most accurately represents how the term is still used today. That's not to say that Jeremy Lin or Yermin Mercedes aren't incredible at what they do, but they both outperform their true talent level to the point of becoming a phenomenon, before descending back to earthly levels of relevance. This video covers some of the most notable instances of Linsanity in MLB's recent history, starting off with Mercedes. The Yerminator cooled off in May following his historic April, and his June was flat out bad. He played the last game of his White Sox career on June 30th, being demoted for the remainder of the year and then released in 2022. But all of that wasn't without drama. Mercedes homered off a position player during a blowout on May 17th, and La Russa publicly chastised him for stat padding off a 3-0 pitch.
I was upset because that's not a time to swing 3-0. There'll be a consequence. It won't happen again because Joe will be on the lookout and I will be too, and we'll go running in front of the pitcher. We have to.
Many fans cite this as the moment his season turned around for the worse. And looking at the before and after splits, you'd think that there's some truth to this theory, but that's likely correlation rather than causation. Mercedes had been struggling in the weeks leading up to that game, and his April numbers weren't really sustainable. His bat possessed upside, as evidenced by his ridiculous max EV numbers, but he brought no value on defense and wasn't hitting well enough to be a DH only. He wasn't a good enough player to butt heads with his manager and keep his job. Just a few weeks after being demoted, he made an infamous Instagram story post announcing his retirement, before reporting to his AAA game the very next day. Mercedes got another chance with the Giants in 2022, but again, his bat wasn't valuable enough as a no-defense player. so he was cut after just 31 games. He began 2023 with the Acereros de Monclova of the Mexican League, but was released after just 20 games. And that's his story as of today. I'd be shocked if he ever saw a Major League Baseball field again. Even though it was short-lived, White Sox fans will remember April of 2021 with the same butterflies that Knicks fans remember February of 2012, as is the essence of Linsanity.
Quick! This is the first name of the player who was second to Albert Pujols for highest OPS in the first 30 games of their career during the 2000s.
And that would be Jeff.
Jeff Francoeur, affectionately known as Frenchie due to his undying love of escargot and Jean-Luc Godard films, was born in Atlanta, Georgia on January 8, 1984. Growing up watching the Braves dynasty of the mid-90s, Jeff dreamed of joining the likes of Chipper Jones and John Smoltz during the long summers at Turner Field, helping them continue their run of consecutive division titles. He lettered in baseball and football at Parkview in Gwinnett County. And despite being offered a full ride at Clemson, Jeff decided to put college on hold when he got the phone call that would put him all the much closer to living out his fantasy. Frenchie muscled his way through 4 levels in 3 seasons before being called up in July of 2005 as part of the crop of baby Braves that included his lifelong friend Brian McCann, Kelly Johnson, and Ryan Langerhans. What at one point seemed like an outlandish dream became a cemented reality for Jeff on July 7th, with John Smoltz taking the bump and Chipper Jones injured because that's what he did a lot of back then. Francoeur comes up to the plate with the chance to lock the game in with his best friend on first and forgotten baby Brave at second.
Runners hold, pitch swung on, hammered center field, track, wall, it's gone! Jeff Francoeur's first big league hit of all!
Francoeur continued to use that summer heat to torch the entire league. Not that this is a healthy way to view small sample sizes, but he was on a 50-double, 50-homer pace for a full season come mid-August, and had an OPS over 1 as far back as early September. He also had an arm that NATO was keeping tabs on. While the fall weather would cool Jeff's bat, there was a major buzz around him heading into the following season. Much to Braves fans' chagrin, Jeff would have a relatively mediocre 2006 that only resembled something of a good season due to racking up counting stats by playing in all 162 games. In 2009, the Braves completed a rare trade with the New York Mets, shipping off their hometown hero for a guy who would only play 44 games with them. Francoeur continued to bounce around after reaching free agency, going from the Mets to the Rangers, went to the Royals, Giants, somehow played on neither during the World Series appearances, Padres, Phillies, back to the Braves, and ending it where stars of the mid-aughts go to die, the Miami Marlins, only posting an 800 or better OPS in 1 full season during that span. While his career didn't live up to the initial hype, for 1 summer, he got the chance to help the Braves continue their unprecedented streak of division titles while playing alongside his heroes. And in response, he produced one of the finest Linsanity stretches that we've ever seen.
Make sure to check out No More Feeler's channel after this. He really makes great stuff. Before I get to the next player, this video is brought to you by Manscaped.com, the premium brand for men's grooming and hygiene products across the globe. Manscaped hooked me up with a bunch of free stuff from their all-in-one Perfect Package 4.0. The highlight is the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Manscaped's 4th generation electric trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology, which reduces nicks and cuts. It's cordless and waterproof, so you can shave your entire body in the shower after blowing a save. It also has LED lights on the front to show you how much juice you have left, and it comes with a wireless charging dock. The Perfect Package 4.0 also includes the Crop Preserver deodorant and Crop Reviver toner spray to keep yourself feeling fresh all day long. And also the Magic Mat, a funny disposable shaving mat. For a limited time, you can get all of this plus 2 free gifts: the Shed Traveling Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs. Go to manscaped.com today and get 20% off plus free international shipping, plus 2 free gifts when you use promo code ATB at checkout. Manscaped, the perfect tools for your family jewels. Damn it. I was kind of unsure of where I wanted to go next. Do I look at a recent example like Jorge Mateo, or maybe a former top prospect like Dominic Brown? But I decided to balance things out with a pitcher, and this next guy's story is pretty special. Matt Shoemaker went undrafted after graduating from Eastern Michigan in 2008. This was back when the MLB draft was a 50-round marathon. In that era of the draft, almost anyone with a lick of talent was picked at some point. When 1,500 players get picked over you, including Eric Decker and Kyle Long, who are better at completely different sports, that's usually a sign to go out and get a real job. But Shoemaker pursued his passion. He played collegiate summer ball after the draft, and the Angels signed him for a $10,000 bonus in August. After grinding through 6 minor league seasons, he debuted with the Angels for a single start at the end of 2013. And it was a taste of what the Angels fans would see in 2014. He cracked the opening day roster as a reliever, but only made 3 appearances before being demoted. When he returned about a month later, he split time as a starter and reliever. He needed to prove himself to earn a full-time spot in the rotation. Shoemaker punched out 10 Indians on June 17th, and his 8 innings of 2-run ball were easily the best work of his young career. That earned him a near permanent spot in the rotation, and he really turned it on at the end of the year. In his last 11 games, he kept his ERA under 1.5 and threw over 6 innings per game, including a perfect 3-inning relief appearance against the Red Sox. Quick sidebar, that game was nuts. Garrett Richards started for the Angels, took a no-hitter into the 7th, and gave up the lead during that same 7th inning. Trout tied the game with the homer, the game was deadlocked until the 14th inning, then Dustin Pedroia stole 2 bases on 1 play, later scoring on a sac fly. The Angels tied it again in the bottom of the 14th, called on Shoemaker in the 17th on 2 days rest, and he dominated until an Albert Pujols walk-off finally put the 6.5-hour affair to bed. Shoemaker ended August with 4 more consecutive wins, all in much more conventional games. He picked up the slack once Cy Young favorite Garrett Richards went down with an injury in August, and it was up to him to lead the rotation with the best record in baseball. Shoemaker got the Game 2 start against the Royals in the division series, and he did his job, throwing 6 innings of 1-run ball, striking out 6, and allowing just 5 hits and no walks. But just like in Game 1, Angels bats didn't show up. The Royals broke the 1-1 stalemate in the top of the 11th. The bottom half of the inning and Game 3 were just formalities. The Angels haven't been back to the playoffs since, and Matt Shoemaker hasn't been quite the same since. Mysteriously and for no reason at all, his home run rate ballooned in 2015, and even though he was pretty good again in 2016, his season ended abruptly when he was struck in the head by a liner. He never threw 100 innings in a season again. 3 straight seasons with forearm strains ended out his time in Anaheim, and the Blue Jays took a flyer on him in free agency. For a few weeks to begin 2019, his $3.5 million salary looked like a steal. The Jays won each of his first 5 starts, but in that 5th start, Shoemaker tore his ACL, ending his promising season as quickly as it began. He never recaptured his form, struggling in 2020 with Toronto and in 2021 with Minnesota, before pitching 1 more postseason in Japan and ultimately retiring. Matt's story is one of success in the face of unlikely odds. This is a guy who always stopped and signed autographs, always donated his time to charity events, and always carried himself like someone who appreciated the grind it took to fulfill his dreams. He carried the #1 team in the league for the most important stretch of the season as a rookie, and I'm certain he would have accomplished more if not for some unfortunate injury luck. Before I close out this video with the greatest Linsanity Run ever, please make sure you're subscribed. Over 90% of you guys aren't subbed. It's free, only takes a click, and helps me out a ton. Thanks. For my money, the 2011 World Series is still the greatest series of baseball I've ever watched, and that's mostly because of one guy. I know what you're gonna say. David Freese was nearly a 20-WAR player. He had a very good 11-year MLB career, and to that I say he still greatly outperformed his actual talent level during the 2011 playoffs. Before we get into the individual moments, from a macro level, Freese had more win probability added in October of 2011 than during the rest of his career combined. It's easy to tell that without him, the Cardinals have no chance at winning this World Series. Boy, are they lucky that he decided to play baseball again.
I quit baseball out of high school. I was just done. I was burnt out. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be a kid. I think desire is huge, and that's something I lost.
But over the summer after his freshman year, Freese got the itch. He realized just how much he loved the sport, joined a local JUCO, transferred to South Alabama, and got drafted by the Padres. Freese was extraordinarily talented, and his hiatus didn't change that. He dominated at every level of the minors, got traded for someone who should be in the Hall of Fame, and won the Cardinals' starting third base job in 2010. A bone bruise in his ankle and a broken hamate kept him off the field for about half of 2010 and 2011, but when he played, he hit near 300 with solid defense at the hot corner. Freese was already 28, but had just about a season's worth of plate appearances entering the 2011 playoffs. He was well known within the baseball industry, but relatively unknown to the general public. I don't think anyone expected what happened next. The Cardinals faced the Phillies' iconic starting rotation in the NLDS, dropping 2 of the first 3 games as Freese started the series 2 for 12, and the Redbirds were playing from behind immediately in Game 4. A still really good Roy Oswalt was on the bump for Philly, but in the bottom of the 4th, David Freese changed everything.
And there's a shot, base hit down the left field line, and the Cardinals lead 3-2. David Freese with a 2-run double.
Oswalt found his groove again the 3rd time through the order, but just an out away from getting through 6 strong, Freese once again made his mark.
In the air to center field, Victorino going back is Victorino, it's gone!
Based on WPA, Freese had the 2 most impactful plate appearances of this game. The Cards held on for a 5-3 victory, and they got to send out their ace for Game 5. Chris Carpenter defeated Roy Halladay in a classic pitcher's duel, and St. Louis lived to play another series. Freese wasted no time getting started in the NLCS.
That ball's well hit, it's got a chance, and it is gone! David Freese.
It was again the most valuable hit according to WPA, but it wasn't the loudest.
And a swing and a drive to right center, and the Brewers have taken the lead.
The Brewers overcame Freese's heroics in Game 1, but Albert took the reins in the Game 2 bounce-back victory, mashing a homer and 3 doubles, with Freese knocking an RBI base hit and late-game homer for some less than essential insurance. Game 3 saw the corner infield duo share the workload, as Freese went 3 for 4 with a pair of doubles and Pujols got on base 4 times during the victory. Manager Tony La Russa actually benched Lance Berkman and moved Freese up to the cleanup spot for Game 4. Even though he went 2 for 4, he didn't have much of an impact on the 4-2 series-tying loss. Freese got on base 3 more times and scored twice as the Cardinals won the pivotal Game 5, and he played maybe his best game of the series in the clincher.
Long one into left field, get up baby, get up! 3-run home run by David Freese.
Another 3 for 4 game, yet again with the most impactful play of the night. If he did this just once during the series, he would have been a postseason hero. He did it in almost every game, putting up one of the most ridiculous stat lines I've ever seen en route to the NLCS MVP. Even if this was the extent of Freese's heroics, he'd probably be in this video. But you and I both know that the best is yet to come. He doubled and later scored the deciding run of Game 1, and scored the only Cardinals run of Game 2, but the Rangers rallied during the second game to even the World Series as the teams headed to Texas. Game 3 was the Albert Pujols game, as Albert tapped into his inner Reggie Jackson and slugged 3 homers. Freese put up a casual 2 for 4 with a walk and RBI double. In Game 4, Derek Holland pitched the game of his life, finally keeping Freese off base as he and Neftali Feliz combined to shut out the offense that poured on 16 runs the night before. Game 5 was much of the same, with the Cardinals losing 4-2. Freese went 1 for 4 with the base hit, but stranded the bases loaded in the top of the 7th for probably the first missed clutch opportunity of the postseason, and Mike Napoli came through for the Rangers in the very same situation the next inning. With their back against the wall, back in St. Louis, the world witnessed the quintessential David Freese game, and probably the greatest baseball game of the 21st century. After 6 lead changes resulted in a 4-4 tie entering the 7th, the Rangers exploded for 3 runs, sucking the life out of Busch Stadium.
High fly ball down the left field line. This ball is gone.
A solo shot and 3 base hits in the 8th brought the crowd back to life, but the Cardinals stranded the bases loaded, wasting what looked like their last glimmer of hope on the season. Neftali Feliz had been fantastic all season and postseason, and he struck out the first batter he faced in the 9th. Pujols smoked another double, and Feliz pitched around Berkman. He then struck out the red-hot Alan Craig to bring the Rangers within 1 out of glory. You'll never guess who stepped into the box next. Just 1 strike away from Texas's first World Series title in franchise history, David Freese had other ideas.
Into right, well hit. Back at the wall. It's off the wall. 1 run scores. Here comes Berkman. Freese has tied it.
Should Nelson Cruz have run this down? Maybe, but everything about this play is nostalgic to me. David Freese diving in the 3rd, Joe Buck's hoarse voice delivering what is probably the best call of his life.
7-7.
What a moment. and it's not even his best of this game. Josh Hamilton hit what would usually be a dagger homer in most cases in the top of the 10th. But by this point, the St. Louis crowd wasn't going to quit on this team even if they were down a dozen. They got another rally going in the bottom half, and Berkman tied it up yet again. Once again, one strike away from defeat. David Freese led off the bottom of the 11th, working the count full before making even more history.
We will see you tomorrow night.
This game is easily the greatest back and forth in MLB history, and to cap it all off, Freese delivered the game-tying double in the bottom of the first inning of Game 7, sucking the wind out of the Rangers' sails after they took an early lead. With that swing, the last World Series lead Texas ever held was wiped away. Wow, 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 wow. If you have that many big moments, that many clutch swings, that consistent of a month, you deserve to have your name in every work about the history of this sport. David Freese is a great ball player. He had the best year of his career in 2012, finally getting healthy and doing his best to fill the massive void left by Albert's departure. He had just one good playoff series across the 2012 and 2013 postseasons, going ice cold in the 2013 World Series, and his time in St. Louis was up not long after. He spent the remainder of his career between the Angels, Pirates, and Dodgers, and actually did some heavy lifting as a platoon bat for LA during the 2018 and 2019 runs. He probably had plenty of baseball left in the tank when he retired after the 2019 season, but he accomplished everything he ever dreamed of on the ball field back in 2011. Cardinals fans voted overwhelmingly for him to join the Cardinals Hall of Fame this year, but he declined the honor, not feeling deserving of having his own name placed next to the mythical heroes of his childhood. Ozzie Smith, Bob Gibson, David Freese? That just doesn't make any sense to David Freese. But most Cardinals fans will tell you that he's more than earned his spot amongst the legends.